Alabama head coach Nick Saban appeared on the next-to-last episode of ESPN's Mike and Mike on Thursday morning and discussed a variety of topics on the weekday morning show that has been running since 2000. Below is a transcript of what Saban said. Mike: Golic, I've got to start off by saying I sat there and listened to you talk about the jeans, and I can't tell you how much I agree with you. I see it from my own wife and daughter, where they walk around with jeans that are worn out or have holes in them, and knowing what they spent on them and thinking, my God, I could rip a pair of jeans and sell them and try to make some money as well. It blows my mind. So, I was right with you on that one. Yeah. Well, it just reminds me, when I was a kid and we didn't have really great clothes all the time to wear, and you're kind of embarrassed sometimes when you went to school and you had jeans that had a hole in them, or the leg was split, or they were a little worn out. And now, people spend great big money to have it that way. Kind of interesting how we got there, I guess. Mike Greenberg: the world has changed in a lot of ways, but the one thing that seems to never change is that your team is ranked up there at the top. And Mike and I have both been fascinated all through your tenure there, but certainly this year, with a lot of the ways that you have handled the expectations and the way people talk about your program and the term rat poison, which now everyone is using for everything. Can you kind of explain that a little bit more in depth, the ways in which you are concerned that all the praise and all the expectations can negatively impact young players in their ability to work and do the job they need to do? Alabama coach Nick Saban. Photo, Marvin Gentry, USA Today Sports. I think one of the things we constantly try to do with our players is get them to stay focused internally on the things they need to do to play well. And I think that's one of the more difficult, not in a bad way. They get a lot of positive self-gratification from internet, media, Facebook, all kinds of social media outlets, the media itself, and that's a good thing. But it can also be a tremendous distraction for them in terms of how they get affected by external factors. It can cause complacency when people talk about them in a positive way, and it can create some frustration if people talk about them in a negative way. So, we're really trying to get them just to stay focused on the things that they need to do to accomplish the goals that they have, and every one of them wants to play well. But that's really what we're trying to do, and I think the whole idea of the poison is it does sort of poison their mind a little bit if you don't think the right way in terms of what you have to do to stay focused on the things you need to be working so that they improve their performance. Golic: and the one thing you can't keep 18 to 22-year-olds off of is social media. We've had Coach K on the show and a friend of yours and Tom Izzo on the show talking about how he deals with this generation of players that loves to be on social media. How do you deal to your players? Do you talk to them about it or have rules about it? How do you go about it? Because you know they're going to be on it. Well, we know they're going to be on it. What we try to do is counsel them, direct them, monitor them to some degree to hope they don't do anything on social media that will affect their brand in a negative way. I think when you put things out there that are not truly your character, your integrity, what kind of person that are you trying to really gain attention from something that you say or do may not be a positive thing for you, the team you represent. So, that's the kind of guidelines that we try to use. We don't feel like restricting them in some way is going to be the answer to what seems to be a part of our culture. Greenberg: I watched your game last week, which was a sensational game at Mississippi State. And there were multiple times in that fourth quarter, I will admit it, I said out loud, Alabama is in trouble, and your team found a way to win. What did you learn about your team in the second half of that fourth quarter on the road this weekend? We knew it was going to be hard. We knew it was going to be a hard game. We've had hard games at Mississippi State many years since we've been here. Almost every time we go over there it's a hard game. And they've been a good team this year on both sides of the ball, so we knew it was going to be difficult, and it was going to be interesting to see how the team responded to the difficulty and the competition in the circumstances they were playing in. And the thing that I learned is in the fourth quarter, we didn't have control of the game in the first 3 quarters of the game. They sort of controlled the tempo of the game, the momentum of the game. But in the fourth quarter, when we needed to do it, we made the stops on the defense, we made the drives on offense that we needed to make, and when we actually came up empty, when we missed a field goal. So, I was really pleased with the way the players responded from a competitive standpoint. In an adverse circumstance, they sort of embraced the difficulty of the circumstances and overcame it. Golic, not from an X's and O's standpoint but from intangibles, what has Jalen Hurts picked up the most? Where has he improved the most in the intangible part of the quarterback position? I think what Jalen has done is he's become a little more confident and a little bit more instinctive as a decision maker in the passing game. I think he's an athletic. He always has the ability to throw the ball, but he sort of had a built-in sense of I can take off running anytime I need to get out of trouble. So, that's always sort of your escape mechanism, rather than seeing a playthrough, reading a playthrough, hitting the open guy, and I think he's gotten a little better at being a pocket passer, having a better pocket presence, making better decisions, and we've made more plays throwing the ball down the field because of that. And I think that's important, especially with the kind of skill players that we have, that we need to have make plays for us. Alabama QB Jalen Hurts, photo, Kevin C. Cox, Getty, Greenberg, you play Mercer this week, and then the big game with Auburn, and everybody outside of the Alabama program is going to look ahead to the Auburn game. You, obviously, are not going to. So, from a player's standpoint, do they just understand when they come to Alabama in your culture that you don't overlook anything? Or is it something you and the coaching staff have to impress upon them? I think that you have to impress upon them that it's really important they focus on the technical things that they need to do to improve as players, individually, collectively, however you want to talk about it. I used to cringe at Ohio State when Woody Hayes would say, if we're good enough to beat Michigan, we're good enough to win this game. And I was always one of those guys that would take it one game at a time and focus on one game at a time. But in a way, I understand what he's talking about. If your players all play to a standard, the standard is going to help them in this game and in future games because they're developing the right competitive habits they need to play at a high level and a high standard all the time. And the team you're playing really shouldn't determine that one way or the other. So, we're working hard to try to get our players to do that, to see if they respond and play well, but you never know until you get to the game on Saturday. Golic, last one from me. Listen, injuries are never an excuse. That being said, is this even more than you've seen in a while, especially from one position, the linebacker position? Even for you, is it like, well, it's not an excuse, but wow, we're losing a lot of players? Well, we really have different sort of issues and problems with every team. Sometimes you have a really good team and have a really young quarterback. Other times you have a really good offense, not so good on defense. Sometimes you have a pretty good team and you sort of get snake bitten at one position, and I think when that position is linebacker, which is the signal callers on defense, the guys that set that front, probably make more plays because of their instinctive abilities. It does have some impact and effect. But I also think it creates other opportunities for other players, and the challenge as a coach to get in there and coach your tail off to try to get those guys better so that they can play winning football for you. And in the end, I think that's a benefit to your team. So, that's what we're trying to do here. I think it's going to be important for the finish that we can get that done with our players as coaches, and that's what we're looking forward to. So, it's a challenge, but it's exciting to be able to do it. Greenberg, we want to thank you for taking the time to do this today, and thank you for all the time you've given us over all the many years. You're probably aware that Mike and I are wrapping up our show tomorrow. You've been a constant with us here with a lot of fun and good times and very few bad ones. So, we very much appreciate it and continued success. Well, I appreciate, guys. And I'd like to say that I'd like to thank you guys for I think having a show that a lot of people have a tremendous amount of respect for. The two of you are really informative. The chemistry together has been something that I think a lot of people really appreciate, acknowledge and certainly will miss. I hope everything goes well for both of you, and y'all a great day. 8.